So today, we're looking at how to amplify human productivity and creativity. And we've just heard about how technology can bring a broader range of human creativity into something we typically consider deeply serious and analytical. Now let's go to the other end of the spectrum. In this next session, we're going to look at how technology can take something that already reaches billions of people, namely gaming, and explore how to bring additional depth and a new level of engagement to it using AI. Gaming and AI enjoy a mutually beneficial relationship. On the one hand, games have historically been a place where a lot of interesting AI research happens, and modern games offer a unique platform for training and experimentation. On the other hand, AI advances make games more interesting and fun and accessible for the people who play them. But integrating the latest AI into games has its challenges. It's hard, for example, when a game is in development, to train AI in a constantly changing environment. It's hard to bridge the cultural gap between research and product teams. In this next session, we've got a panel of leaders in the gaming industry who will explore how to address these challenges and look at what's on the horizon for AI in gaming. Principal researcher Sam Devlin out of Microsoft Research Cambridge is going to moderate. Sam's research looks at how AI can enable the creation of new ways to play games, with the ultimate goal of attracting new players and bringing a little more joy to the billions of people worldwide who already play.
Hello, and welcome to today's panel on From AI Research to Application in AAA Games. I'm Sam Devlin, Principal Researcher here in Microsoft Research Cambridge, focused on games and AI, and it's my pleasure today to be your moderator for this excellent panel lineup that we have. Just to get us all started, I'd like to do a quick round of introductions, starting with my colleague Haiyan Chung from our Xbox team.
Hi, I'm Haiyan Chung. I'm General Manager of Gaming AI at Microsoft. Gaming AI is focused on accelerating AI across all our Xbox ecosystem, from platform to games. And my background is in software engineering and design. Previously, I was at Microsoft Research, focusing on hardware sensing, healthcare, and leading the gaming and AI portfolio out of Cambridge in the UK. And my most recent role was as Chief of Staff for Xbox.
Thanks, Haiyan. Over to Dr. Peter Werman.
Hello, I'm Pete Werman. I am the Director of Sony AI America and the Director of our Game AI projects. Sony AI is a new research group within Sony focused on leveraging AI systems and technologies to help unleash human creativity. In my career, I've had the opportunity to be a professor, then join a startup company in the robotics space called Kiva Systems, and now most recently I help lead an industrial research team at Sony.
Thanks, Pete. Next up we have Dr. Uma Jairam.
Hello, Sam. It's indeed a pleasure to be here on this panel today. I'm Uma Jairam, and I'm General Manager of a business unit called SEED in Electronic Arts. SEED has the charter of essentially engaging in applied research and innovation in service of our game teams. So we have teams in Europe, we have a concentration in Sweden, we have our units in Montreal, and then I also have my teams in various locations along the West Coast. So we are a multi-geo team, and we are in some cases working very closely with the game teams, and sometimes we have more of a central technology flavor. And so I think what that does is it allows us to have some very interesting problem spaces, and also the ability to come up with some solutions that we feel are very useful for our game teams. Just a quick background about myself. I was a professor for about 20 plus years, And that is also something that I really cherish. I'm really proud about. And along the way, co-founded 3 companies with my colleagues and with former students, and sold one of them to Intel. So I was also managing director at Intel post acquisition. So it has been a very interesting journey, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be bringing a lot of those insights to the amazing work that we do at Electronic Arts.
Thank you, Uma. Finally, we have Dr. Yuichiro Miyake from Square Enix.
Okay, I'm Yoshio Miyake. I'm a general manager of AI division in Square Enix. My team is about 20 people. That's very international team. Come from 7 countries, and our team in Tokyo and making new AI technologies for many games for Square Enix.
That's great. Thank you all. We've got a really exciting lineup of panelists here, so I'd like to jump in with our first question. So, games and AI have had a long history together, with many advancements in AI originally demonstrated in classic games like chess, poker, and Go. What has changed recently? I'll hand over to Uma to open us up on that one.
Thank you so much for that question, Sam. And as I think about it, I think there is so much that is changing and so much that is staying the same. And if I think about games and AI, and I think about that intersection, my mind naturally goes to a kind of like a Venn diagram. And so you have these circles that are intersecting. And if you plot those like over the years, over the decades, I think you see those circles in a way are growing bigger. So there's much more of what's going on in gaming, much more of what's going on in AI. And even that overlap, right? That overlap is also increasing as we go along. So for me, that's a very interesting way to reflect about, how AI and gaming, where that is going. What is staying the same is essentially, fundamentally, if you think about AI, it's about, what do you want to learn and how do you learn it? And of course, that is then in service of either doing some kind of an inference or solving some kind of a problem. So I think it's good to keep both of those in focus. And with that, what I would like to offer up is when I think about what has changed, I naturally my mind thinks in shapes, and I think about 4 sides of a rectangle, to create a boundary of the space. And so, on one side, I think of it as what has changed is essentially some of the theoretical underpinnings themselves, right, of AI. And so the way we have tried to unify certain concepts, or the way we have thought about deterministic, non-deterministic solutions, and how we are now able to go more towards the non-deterministic part of it, and that allows emergent behaviors that can then be brought in service of our game teams. The other side of this rectangle, if I may call it, is the advances that we are having in terms of infra and the maturity of the technology itself. So, one thing that comes to mind is, for example, AI on the chip. So, whether you're thinking about, the GPUs or the FPGAs or the ASICs, specialized for AI. And so really you have AI on the device, and what does that allow you to do? And kind of the broader picture there is your full stack. And so you have the full stack, and that obviously allows for a lot of experimentation and also a lot of, I would say, efficiencies in terms of deployment. And now, kind of bringing up the other 2 sides, I think what has also changed is our expectations of our players themselves. And so the players have become more sophisticated. They are asking for more sophisticated games, and what counts as AI for them. And so I think that has created some interesting opportunities. And then finally, if I look at the kind of the last piece of it, it's our games themselves. And so again, there's kind of a driven and the driver, but however it may be, the way we are architecting games, the way we are telling our stories, what we aspire for our stories to do, those are also evolving and creating these opportunities. And so, I kind of like to think about all of these in some kind of a tension, and sometimes one may be developing way more, so it's not really like a rectangle of shape, but something's way off. Like, for example, when there was the winter of AI, right? So then that part was not developed so much, but these are all creating tensions, and with that there is an evolution of the space.
I really love that concept of the 4 dimensions, and in particular, I'd pick up on what you said about the player expectations and the types of games that leads us to create. As expectations have changed from players and we create more diverse experiences, there is a rich curriculum of games that can help train agents and enable AI to do new things in games. And Pete, you have a very recent success here using a very recent game that particularly challenged your AIs. Could you share a little bit about your experience there?
Sure. Yeah, I like the question because it's, the history of AI has often been motivated by people trying to solve games from the 1940s when computers were first invented. And the original inventors like Alan Turing and people like that were thinking about trying to make computers that could play chess. And so what I think has changed since then, of course, is decades of work have made us better and better at programming. The hardware's gotten better. But more recently, we reached some kind of a threshold where reinforcement learning and neural networks together, what we call deep learning, has made it possible to tackle really hard games in ways that was not possible before. And in particular, find ways to make them superhuman. Like in Go and chess now, it's well known that computers are much, much better than the best humans on the world. And recently we had a chance to do a similar kind of thing with the game Gran Turismo, a PlayStation racing game made by Polyphony Digital, a Sony studio. And using deep reinforcement learning, we were able to train an agent that could race against the best drivers in the world and beat them in a head-to-head match. And these technologies allow us to let the agent learn to race by itself, which is kind of necessary to reach this level because we're asking it to do something better than the best human knows how to do. So we can't program it to do that because we don't know how to do it. So we need to let the agents create these environments in which the agents can learn through trial and error.
Yoichiro, you looked like that response resonated with you. Was there something in particular you'd like to add further to that?
Yes, the focus point of our AI research is applies AI technology in academic research to implementing the game itself. So the most different part between the academic and industrial game is at first there is no games for AIs. For example, chess or shogi or Go is already the game is was developed. I think it is very easy to develop AI because game has already fixed. But so industrial game is the AI development and the game development execute on the parallel. So that is difficult point. So how to apply AI technologies or the undeveloped games because always game is changed and under development. So for example, deep learning can be applied as games already fixed and or developed, such as racing games, fighting games, and or shogi or board games. But in the process of development of games, I think now the many AI technologies should be arranged for each game, I think.
It's a great point. The co-development of the AI and the game presents many extra challenges, but it's
Yes.
also a great opportunity, right,
Yes.
for us to co-design games between AIs and human creatives.
Yes.
Hyan, I wonder if you had extra points on that.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to say this is such an exciting time to be working in AI and gaming space. In terms of things that are changing, I think what I find most exciting is, as Pete mentioned, in the 1940s and 50s, the modern chess computer was invented, and I think AI, and especially AIs that played against humans, has inspired our imaginations about what computers could do. What I love about this recent period is going from advancing AI through using game environments, as you mentioned, so Atari games or chess or the game of Go, using these environments to advance AI, to research that's focused on improving the game experience itself. Because when we get people coming into play modern video games, they're there to have a great time, have fun, be engaged, engage with other people, engage in an emotional, immersive world. And AIs that purely beat humans may not create that great, compelling experience. So I love strands of research that are about collaboration, playing with people, tuning the level of the AI to the player, playing co-op with the player. I think these are all exciting areas. And I think the games industry is also in a really pivotal point where the access to compute has never been better. We have access to cloud compute through cloud stream games. Our compute on console, on PC, also offers the ability to now integrate better models into the clients themselves. But of course, the models keep getting bigger. Another aspect that's quite revolutionary recently is with these large-scale transformer models and the ability for now AIs to be creative, as you said, co-create with developers, with users, in bringing to life their imaginations. One sort of anecdote that I really love is that in the 1950s, Claude Shannon, when he invented the modern chess computer, said that these algorithms could never be on par with humans, because as humans we have imagination, we have adaptability, we can think beyond the original programming. And with deep learning and now these transformer models, I think we are going beyond that with machine learning research, and it's creating these new exciting experience areas.
So a lot of excitement in the room for the possibilities and the things that have changed recently, but we should be respectful of some of the challenges as well. So integrating research into product development can be challenging. What issues do the panel see specifically in gaming, and how would you advise teams trying to overcome this? Maybe open up with Pete, given your experience with your previous spin-offs, maybe.
Sure. I think Hyan touched on an important point, which is it's really interesting to train it to make AIs that are better than people at the games. But what we really want is to leverage AIs to make the games more enjoyable, engaging, and more fun to play with. And so, for example, for us, we are working with Polyphony to find a way to bring our agent GT Sophie into the game and to make it a scalable agent so that it can play with people of a lot of different skill levels. So that's one major challenge. The other, there's a couple other challenges related to this kind of technology, bringing it into a game. First off, most of the available compute in modern games goes to graphics. So there's not a lot of compute left over for running large neural networks. And so we have to find ways to make them fit into the available resources. And the second is game designers are very, they put a lot of work into controlling the experience and crafting the experience for the players. And neural nets are fascinating, and they are able to do things that that we don't know how to program, like driving faster than the fastest humans, but we can't be sure that we know what they're going to do in every situation. And so there's this uncertainty that comes with deploying these technologies into commercial games that we're going to have to deal with.
It's a great balance. I'm looking towards Uma maybe for similar experience.
It's so important to be able to take the research that you do and bring it into games, and to also be able to balance that with the ability to do some research for the sake of research, because sometimes you don't see the immediate benefit or application, but that emerges. So I think it's such an interesting problem to be able to balance both of those. But for sure, you need to have, like, in your portfolio, and that's how we kind of address it. We have a portfolio concept, and in that, it's almost like stocks and bonds. So, you have certain, blue sky, could fail. And again, you need to have that appetite and that, that resilience to fail. But then you also, of course, need to be having a robust piece of your portfolio where you're able to take this research into your products. In terms of some very unique challenges, because again, taking research into products, we've done that, through the academic world with the partnerships and through my startups and beyond. What I see as particularly interesting in gaming is the ecosystem where, for example, you might be a gaming company, and really there are maybe 20 to 30 different studios. And so you come up with this research, but then each studio really has its own way that it has evolved. Some have come in through an acquisition, and so they all have their own cultures, which is important to preserve. But then how do you essentially bring this? Some are embrace it, some are a little bit more conservative. So I think that's one interesting aspect. Also, the fact that different games are developed on different engines, right? And so you might have Unity, you might have Unreal. For us in EA, we also have our internal engine Frostbite. So how do you take this research, but then by the time you say product, it's not like a product, but then there are these different games with these different engines. You have different platforms. So I think very often researchers like to solve the fundamental problem, come up with the solution, but then you need to make sure that it works all the way from your Ferraris, Maseratis, of your best computer, all the way to, whatever be a more humble version. And that takes a different mindset and a different sense of purpose, which is as important. And so I think these are some of the challenges, and of course, that creates for that rich environment. And what I would like to maybe say in closing is the way that we have addressed this. We try to have some very good relationships with the game teams so that we are not off in our own world thinking we know what the problems are, but we are staying grounded. And then we also have some very interesting programs. So for example, we have a program called Seed Academy. And in this, someone from a game team can come and spend anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months with us. And what that does is it gives avenues for them to learn some of the new technologies, and also for us to build a rapport and also a compassion and an empathy for what their realities are. So I think these kinds of communication, building that empathy between the different groups, for us to understand that they have a game to deliver. So there are timelines, there are deliverables, and how do we respond to that? So I think these are some of the thoughts on this.
I of the Sound of the Academy program. That seems like a great way to set up that sort of knowledge sharing and, like you said, the empathy between teams. We work closely with one of the game studios here based in Cambridge, Ninja Theory. And again, that ability to spend time together in each other's locations has been a great way to help researchers understand better the game development process, and for this also to help with the knowledge transfer from machine learning into the studio. Hyan, you've seen this sort of thing from both sides, right? From your time at Microsoft Research and from your time now at Xbox. Do you have something to add further?
Yeah, I have to say, yes, I resonate with Uma's insights and experiences there as well. It's been interesting working between Microsoft Research and Xbox. I think one of my main insights in the last few years is that video games as an entertainment art form is a unique blend of human creativity and technological advancement. And we are seeing such interesting forms of this art being created nowadays that aren't your typical video games. So recently, we just launched a game called As Dusk Falls. It's a narrative story about a family going through a crisis. The player selects what different characters will do, and then they watch the story unfold. So it's not a typical FPS, and it's really about bringing players in and having them experience a whole new world, creating empathy with characters, being immersed in a different narrative. A few years ago, we brought out Tell Me Why, which featured the first transgender character in a video game. And we believe that video games as an art form is going to create more connection across the world, helping people experience lives that they wouldn't normally be exposed to. And at the same time, we want to bring research along on that journey to help us create even more immersive, empathetic video games. And how do we do that? I really do think that it's about bringing everybody along, helping researchers and game creators work together, and understanding that game creators are so focused on their art form. How do we make machine learning easy for the game creators to leverage and fold into their creation process? Sometimes I think that there should be more focus on user experience and design of machine learning tools if they're to be assistive in the creative process. For designers and writers to be writing video games, how do we bring more machine learning into that process? And the other aspect is robustness of the models and of these tools that I think when as machine learning researchers, when we write a paper, it works beautifully in the paper. But then when we transfer it to a studio and it's used across many different environments by people who aren't experts in AI, it sort of becomes more brittle. So we really also need researchers that are very committed to, as Uma said, taking this on the journey and developing that empathy with the human creativity that is about making video games.
Thanks. And Yoichiro, I wonder if you could share any experiences you've had at Square Enix of trying to bridge that gap from the papers to the actual product.
Yes, Square Enix AI Group, AI divisions published many paper and have a presentation international conference. In Square AI divisions, there's a two professional such as researcher and engineers, but there's no pure researchers. So researchers also, of course, develop new technologies, research new technology, but researchers also making the small demo to present the new AI technology to game developer teams. So transferring AI knowledge is a big problem also in Square Enix because research researching and developing is the other's tasks, and has a deep gap between them. But we have seminars, AI seminars in every week to share our knowledge with all Square Enix members. That's called the AI seminar. So that was more than 300 times held. In that seminars, we introduce AI technologies to game planners and game programmers, and show and explain some recent paper published by Square Enix or the other companies. And by these seminars, the knowledge is accumulated in Square Enix groups, and many people access to recent new AI technologies very easily. That is the status of Square Enix.
Thank you for sharing, and I definitely resonate with this challenge of trying to do knowledge transfer across these gaps with people of different experiences. As a researcher that focuses on the development of machine learning for agent control, I also find it's incredibly mutually beneficial to work with game studios because they actually have decades of experience shipping agents to players. They may not have been machine learning controlled, but they actually put agents in front of players and know what players do with those agents when they get their hands on them. So I think it's a really mutually beneficial relationship to have these sort of knowledge sharing events, both with experienced game developers and researchers. That said, there are a lot of exciting possibilities ahead. I'd love to go around the room and see what everybody sees as the most exciting upcoming opportunities at the intersection of gaming and AI. And to kick us off, I'll throw over to Hyan.
Oh, wow. I have a long list. Well, I just think with new mechanisms for delivering games to players, such as cloud streaming, such as, the new advancements in console, in chip design. There's just a plethora of ways that machine learning research can be applied to game development. I love the AI agents work that we are sort of looking at together. My question would be, hey, how do we create agents that are emotionally resonant with players? That realm of crafting a human in the virtual world that takes players on an emotional journey is still sitting with designers, but how can we assist them in crafting these emotional interactions? There's improvements to be made in asset generation, in being a co-pilot for creativity for game developers. There's going to be amazing improvements in rendering quality, in just delivering that visual impact that players see when they can become more immersed in their world. I think I'm most excited about with sort of these new focus areas on transformer models and multimodality, the possibility to integrate machine learning models into games to generate dynamic gameplay, whatever form that might take. And in that real dynamism, what new genres of games can be created? Because for me, at the end of the day, it's what are these games that people have never experienced before that machine learning can really open up.
Thanks for sharing, Hyan. Yuichiro, what excites you about upcoming opportunities?
So now we are making meta AI. So meta AI means not the character AI and the vision AI. That is control the game by the top of view. For example, in recent game is the field is very large, and so the game is very complex and has a large field. So that control of a game scene become difficult. So only by making the agent more clever is not enough to making the good scene or the good situation in game. So Meta AI is always observe the game feed and the game status and understands the now users what users now thinking uh, by estimating their emotions. And the meta can control the agent behaviors and the weathers and the terrains and the wind and the many things. By controlling all things in games, meta makes a good scene, the good drama in the open world of the games. So that is, I think Meta is the most promising technologies in AI technologies because it has a deep relation with game design, the game status, and the user experience in game.
Reminds me of the challenge of a dungeon master AI.
Yes, just like yes, Dungeon Master, the Game Master in TRPG, game masters can control all things in this game. That is equivalent to the meta AI in digital games.
Uma?
When you think about the opportunities, I think, as Ayan said, there's just so much that comes to mind, and trying to cull that out to some of the more important ones, or, the more interesting ones, say to me personally or to our teams. I will maybe just give a general, kind of a more philosophical answer, and then give some specific examples. And so, in terms of the kind of a more general philosophical answer, I would say, I very much resonate with what Hayan said, that we, and if I may, just give my flavor of that, it's essentially that instead of just enhancing in a linear way or replacing what has been done before with, say, AI, what is the new gameplay that can possibly emerge, leapfrog, what's something new that we can do? And I believe that for that, we always have to come back to the fundamentals of the human motivation, right? So, the human motivation, AI or no AI, why do we play games? And why do we play games with others? And I think we need to always go back to that fundamental way of looking at games. And then, we take that big leap and hopefully come up with something that we've not thought about before. And in that realm, in the general comments or the opportunities, another thing that is very interesting to me is, when you think about, you read something like The Art of Game Design, or, there's a very classical way of thinking about it where, you have the designer wants to create an experience, and then does that through the medium of the game, and then there is a player. So it's kind of a linear relationship. And now with AI and with all these modern ways of even engaging with the game, the player becomes the designer. The experience is not playing, but the experience is designing the game. So it's kind of like this big a loop where, it's kind of catching its own tail, and you're going back and forth. So to me, that creates some very interesting aspects, which is kind of evolving this linear way of thinking of these four key elements. Now coming to something, just giving some specific examples of what we see as some exciting opportunities. And again, I'm offering up a couple of examples just because I have deep knowledge of that, because our teams are working on that, because we think they're important. And so, we have things like testing is so important for games. So we think about designing, we think about playing, but really the testing is such an important part of it. And we are using reinforcement learning, imitation learning, and now curiosity driven learning to essentially help with game testing, exploring large maps and finding glitches and so on. We also have a generative arts vector where we are looking at, if you wanted to create some very stylized artifact, so maybe you want to bring some stylized element into something like The Sims. how would you generate that? And then, we also have work in terms of our rendering. And so then how do you use ML, to bring some, essentially just again to leapfrog and bring some, new facets to the rendering part of it. And then also in terms of our advanced avatars, right? These you want our games are good because of these various characters. And here again we are focusing on the tooling, and I think Hyan said this earlier, that the tooling is so important, and we are looking at how can we provide tools that are assisted by AI. So these are some of the opportunities that I see.
Thank you, Uma. And Pete, finally, what excites you about the future?
I agree with a lot of what the other panelists said. What excites me, I think, is when I look at kind of so this panel started off talking about the history of AI in games, but really most of that was driven by board games and advances in those board games over many decades. And when you look at the kind of AI that actually goes into modern AAA games, it's not very, at this point, it's still not very tied to what we'd call AI research. Most of it is like you'll see A star and you'll see a lot of behavior trees, but we don't see a lot of modern AI techniques. And I do think these recent advances are going to allow us to pull in really cutting edge AI techniques into games and dramatically change the experience for people.
Very well put. And with that final bit of excitement, I'd just like to open up to anybody on the panel that had some final closing remarks.
I'm happy to just provide my closing remarks the way I look at it. Again, wanted to thank all the panelists. It is so exciting to set aside some time in the day to meet with others who are doing such interesting work and to share perspectives. And sometimes, it's good to get that you feel excited that, oh, people are thinking the same way. And sometimes you hear something and you think, oh, I never thought about it that way, let me investigate that further. So I think and really hoping that the audience that is listening to this today also gets new perspectives from all these discussions. In closing, I wanted to make a couple of comments that especially in the context of gaming, we always need to make sure that we are, being ethical about what we are doing. We have, addressing the toxicity, the, bringing up positive play, and, paying some attention to all these aspects because AI can really, again, enhance or magnify some of these. So we need to be committed to that and give it that respect and that attention that it rightly deserves. The second thing that I wanted to say is literacy is so important. Literacy is something that allows people to understand what something new is or what a slightly different point of view is. And so when we think about AI, it's so important that we don't just keep it in some kind of a little esoteric corner of the company and essentially, just give out artifacts, but we need to bring everybody into that solution. We need to provide, appropriate. Everybody doesn't need to know all the entrails, but we need to have this literacy and this joy of bringing people into, wow, this is a new way of thinking. And I think a lot comes to the mindset really, and we need to bring everybody along on that journey because it is a big leap in how we are doing things. And then, in conclusion, as we think about artificial intelligence, gaming, bots, and all of that, partly tongue in cheek, I just wanted to, I came across this quote from, John Maeda in this book, How to Speak Machine. And he says, discerning what's alive versus what isn't used to be simpler.
Nice quote to end on, Uma. Thank you. Yoichiro, do you have any closing remarks?
It's my honor to talk with a very important part of game AI. Ever game AI is now that is developing fields from 2000. I'm working in the game industry for 20 years, but the change, remarkable changing point is three times at the beginning of the game AI 20 years ago. And the next is the changing the transferred many knowledge from university to game industries 10 years ago, and 4 years ago the deep learning techniques come into the game industry. So now is the times for big challenge, big change of a game AI. So we will focus on to implement this new technology to new games. So I want to share many knowledge with you. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your experience with us today, Yuichiro. Pete?
Yeah, thanks for having us on the panel. It's been a lot of fun to meet all of these experts in the field and see their perspectives on these topics. And I think it's a very exciting time to be working on AI in games because I think we can have a big impact on the future of them.
Thank you. And finally, Hyan.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me to this panel. It's just such an amazing opportunity to reach so many researchers across the world. And I do want to say, as Pete talked about, the history of AI started out in games, board games to simple Atari platform games, because researchers recognized that games provided enclosed small world within which they could advance their machine learning techniques and then take those advances to other areas as well. And today, games are richer, more complex, and still offer those environments to advance machine learning research. So, in a way, AI can enrich the game experience, and I think video games themselves can further enrich research. We have players that are so engaged with these experiences versus other experiences in the world. And if machine learning runs on data and player interaction, then this is the field to be in. But I also just want to say I'm looking forward to all the games that everybody's companies on this panel is going to be putting out in the next few years, because I'm just excited by how rich they will be, and I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Hyan. And thank you again to all of our panelists today for sharing their experiences, and to our audience for tuning in and listening to this.